Hey y'all, welcome back to Sisters in Crime with Shy and Toy. I am Toy, short for Toya.
And I'm Shamia, short for Shamia. Oh, no, Lord, hold on. I'm sorry. My name is Shy, and it's short for Shamia. Oh, Lord.
Okay. And y'all, this week we are going to be covering Frederick Antonio Evans out of good old Spartanburg, South Carolina. So this is a local case for all my people in the upstate. Last week was a little bit heavy. We was talking about, sexual assault. So we're going to lighten this one up a little bit. I mean, it's still crime, so where it's still very much, murder topic. So we understand that it's not funny or whatever, but we have to add our own spin to things. So as usual, we're gonna start off with a little background on good old Frederick. And do you want to start that, Shy, or would you like me to?
It doesn't matter, sister. Now, I do want to add a trigger warning because, again, this week, unfortunately, there is some SA and
Yeah.
some, of course, murder and then
Murder?
assault.
Murder who? I've known him for 2 weeks. He wouldn't murder anybody.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry, y'all. So, okay, so of course, sexual assault, like if violent crimes, like if any of that bothers you, it should bother everybody. But I'm saying if you are very, very triggered by topics like that, please be mindful that this whole episode is going to be full of that. So we appreciate you for tuning in. I just want to give you a trigger warning in advance to let you know that yes,
Yeah.
this is one of those cases.
So
So,
go ahead and exit now if you can't handle that.
all right. So as Toya said, we are covering a case from Spartanburg. To this day, I don't care how many times I've seen the episode on Forensic Files. I always get very, very excited when I see Spartanburg on Forensic Files for
Ain't it
some reason.
weird though?
Right? It's
But
so
that's just
weird.
like it's or I like I've seen, Roebuck, Moore, which all are in
Hmm.
Spartanburg County, all
Hmm.
these places, and it just be exciting. I don't know if it's because it's like, oh, I know that area, or I know that. I mean, murder is not exciting, but this is something like we really get into, and by just being local, it's just like, cause. But I'm gonna let you go ahead. Go ahead.
No, like I get it, because it's like you hear Gaffney, you hear all these places, but it's like we travel these roads. Like that's where we're from. So we travel these roads. We know where this place is at, and we remember hearing this is in the news, and we didn't know that happened.
Yeah.
When everything's over, of course, all the details come out. But yeah, it gets exciting. So about Mr. Frederick. So y'all, before we even begin, if you hear me say refer to someone as Dusty through this whole episode, just know I'm talking about Frederick, okay?
Oh no, go ahead, not Dusty.
Yes, it's given Dusty. Okay. So I was looking back, sis, and just going through the case. Well, his name is Frederick Antonio Evans. I believe I read he was straight, like from Spartanburg area.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I read that he was responsible for several violent crimes
Yep.
throughout his life, like spanning from like the time he was a teenager, allegedly, I believe. I mean, from assault, like cutting someone's throat with a box cutter,
Mm-hmm.
um, even trigger warning, like raping an 83-year-old woman.
Yeah.
Like very like, sir, like what is wrong with you?
And also, there were claims that he sexually abused a female child in 1987 when he was only 19 years old. And the child, they were able to look at records from DSS, Department of Social Services. And the records indicated that the child said he raped her from the age of 6 until 8. And even then, the only reason he stopped was because he was arrested and thrown in jail for a separate criminal sexual conduct conviction. So he'd been a menace to society.
But isn't that crazy though? A baby is saying this man is doing this to them, and
Disgusting.
the only reason why anything ever happens because he's in jail for something else.
Yeah, disgusting.
You know what I mean? Like, and as we delve into these cases, like, well, it's actually two murders, and this is one big case though.
Yeah.
But you will see the monster he is. But let me tell you, like, y'all, I'm gonna keep it real. Tonight is gonna be a trip because I got a lot to say.
And
Right?
I do too.
Like, it's gonna be a long one, so get you something to drink, get you a snack, because it's getting ready to be a long one.
Get
Okay?
ready. Settle in.
Right?
Settle in.
Brace for impact, because it's
All
getting ready to
right.
be a one.
Because he was on the trip and I'm going to be tripping too. Let's
Right.
go.
Right. So it started off, I think the best way we can paint a picture of these cases is just to let you know, like, about each victim and what happened with each victim, right? So
Right.
on September 15th, a lady by the name of Damaris, now her first name is Damaris, but if you want to go back and watch the Forensic Files episode,
Hmm.
they refer to her as her last name being Wynn.
Yeah.
It's
And
like a,
that is
yeah,
season 13, episode 20, Forensic
yeah,
Files, if y'all want to watch that. Go ahead.
yeah. So now Damaris went by Wynn on the episode, but I think that was just an alias, right? But I
Hmm.
believe her real name in real life is was Huff. Um, so they lived in Spartanburg. Damaris went to take a walk as she did all the time, and she didn't return. So her husband, got worried, and he hopped in his car, went around trying to look for her, and he thought, well, maybe she got, like, maybe tripped on something, got injured, and is sitting on the side of the road somewhere just needing some help. So he couldn't find her. So for, like, municipal workers, like within Spartanburg County, actually found her body in the woods. It was like 100 yards from her home.
Hmm.
She was nude with a cord wrapped around her neck. Not a cord, but I'm sorry, but her headphones. Now, upon glance, it's a little weird because Damaris had all of her very expensive possessions still with her. So like her watch, but her clothes were missing.
Hmm.
And the Walkman that she was supposed to have with the headset was also missing. So that startled immediately investigators because obviously if robbery was the motive, wouldn't they have taken the watch? And
Y'all
they
left the
didn't.
good stuff.
Right.
You
You
left
left
the
the
good
good
stuff.
stuff. Right. You
So,
left the
yeah.
good stuff. Right. So, of course, they do an autopsy. They see that she was sexually assaulted, and they see that, of course, she was strangled. Whoever did this tried to strangle her with the headphones first, and then, unfortunately, used their hands to strangle her, eventually killing her. So,
Yeah.
in all, they swabbed like 25 individuals
Hmm.
who were possible, like males, the workers, 25 people, well, 25 men, and with no luck. None of the DNA matched.
Yeah.
So they went to the house, her house, with her husband. His name was James. And they searched the house, and guess what they found, y'all? Anybody want to take a guess?
Pick me.
What's this? Okay, what's this?
They found her Walkman.
Now,
Crazy,
right
right?
away, the math ain't mathing
Right.
because you telling me this woman just has headphones with her with no Walkman?
Come on now.
The math ain't math. So
Mm-mm.
investigators is like, okay, this woman, obviously robbery wasn't the motive because her most expensive possessions she kept, like they were still on her body. We go to the house and find the Walkman. So James, the husband, says, of course they're getting into his alibi. He said he was at home when she didn't return. He took a ride to look for her, and all that stuff. But they looked and they said, okay, something's strange. So, okay, now James, why is her Walkman in the house?
Right.
He said, well, I got an explanation for that. She has two.
Hmm.
And I don't know about y'all, but the math ain't math.
It's a little weird because the picture they showed on Forensic Files said that Walkman looked like the headphones was missing. And the headphones was found with her body. So it's
Exactly.
like, sus.
Very sus. So not only that, let me tell you about Mr. James. So not only that, right? So while the investigation is going on, they look through the house, find the Walkman, and he said, "Well, I'll take a polygraph test." Guess what, y'all? He failed. Failed it with flying colors.
F, go straight to jail. No, but no, though. But to play devil's advocate, they say lie detectors are not very reliable. So, and it's a good thing they weren't relying just on that because we're not even gonna get into that yet. Go ahead, sis. We're not even gonna get into that yet. I'm jumping
So,
ahead. I'm jumping ahead. Go
no,
ahead.
you're no, for real. This is one of those cases though. So,
Yeah,
it's like that. They say like if little Timmy had six apples, it's one of those things. But so he failed the polygraph test. And then on top of that, y'all, the disrespect of it all gets Damaris cremated against her family's wishes. Now, if you didn't have anything to hide, sir, why did you get her body cremated?
exactly. Because I'm thinking, I see in Law and Order, as soon as they talking about getting somebody cremated, up, you trying to hide evidence.
Yeah, it always.
And it's not okay. So I'm gonna say it's not very common among the Black community for people to get cremated, but it is among the white community. So it's not that far fetched. I think it's the simple fact that he went against her family's wishes is what made it kind of seem like, kind of suspect. But it didn't say, I didn't find anywhere where it said Damaris's wishes. I don't know if she had laid out a will and testament. I don't know if she had this conversation with her husband at some point. We don't know. But we know the family wasn't going for it, but he did it anyway.
And that just really bothered me because that's very extreme. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, against the family. I mean, yes, that's your husband, as of course, but like that's extreme. Like, why did you get her cremated?
Exactly. And because of that, the only evidence they had was the DNA, which came from, the swabs and everything. They weren't able to collect a lot of evidence the day that they found Damaris in Duncan Park because it was raining very bad that day. So rain washes away a lot of things. So they didn't have much to go on. And keep in mind, while they did run the DNA to see if it came back as a match in the CODA system, well, the CODA system only really came about for South Carolina specifically. It could have come about earlier in other states, but we're the last ones to get anything. It only came about in 2002.
Hmm.
This happened in 2002. So
Yeah.
keep in mind that if the suspect in question had not committed a crime after they implemented this requirement, then it would not be in the system. And if it was before, it would not be in the system. So, they really don't have much to go off on. So, her case, I don't want to say it goes cold, but for about 5 months, nothing comes about. And then we have another similar case, similar incident that occurs in the Reedville area, which is about 15 miles away from Duncan Park, where Damaris was murdered. And this is Miss Rhonda Ward. It is Ward, right? WARD.
It is, yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes. Now, y'all, so for the people who are not from Spartanburg, y'all have to understand, they don't get down like that in Duncan Park. At least they didn't used to.
They didn't used to, but after this incident, it was a lot of things going on in Duncan Park. So I just stayed away. Just
Yeah.
period. Now I was in high school. Was high school? I was in high school at this time. No, 2002. I was in middle school.
Yeah.
Eighth grade, about to go to high school. Shout out to Dorman High School Cavaliers. But anyway,
No. It's the Centurion pride for me. Thank you.
I don't even know what a centurion is.
Okay, bye.
But We gonna move right along. So stuff like this just did not happen, like Sha said. And even 15 miles away in the Revo community, that's a pretty good area too. It's not like these things are happening in the hoods or the projects or anything like that. These are pretty decent areas for the most part.
Absolutely. So when this happened, it was just like a shocker to the community, like, and then especially with no leads, like, the DNA testing, coming back inconclusive. Basically, it was just like it really stomped investigators until 5 months later, in February, there was another murder. So, Toy,
Yeah.
you want to start with that one?
Yes. So as I stated, this occurred in the Reedville community of Spartanburg. There was a lady by the name of Rhonda Ward. She showed up to work. If you go back and watch the Forensic Files episode, you can see the video surveillance. But basically, she worked at like this convenience store, tobacco type shop, and you can see her car pull up. Her coworker said she was, never one to miss work, always on time, just a model employee. On the video footage, you can see a man approach her, and then he gets in the passenger side of the door. Rhonda gets in the driver's side, and then they pull off. So from the looks of it, looks like it could be just like a friendly encounter, like she, just ran into someone she knew. But we're talking 2003, so at this point, we didn't have the best surveillance footage. So we weren't sure who she got in the car with. Apparently, it must not have been a friend because she was found stabbed to death and SA'd in an apple orchard about 15 miles from the convenience store she worked at. Now, there was a potential witness who was riding by the apple orchard at the same time that Rhonda and this unidentified male emerged from the vehicle and walked into the apple orchard. But at the time, she didn't think anything of it and she kept moving because that's what we do in Spartanburg. We mind our business, okay? Um, this is a case I wish she wouldn't have though, because
Now,
maybe she
sis,
could have done
I'm
something.
I'm keeping it real. Had I saw it, I would have called the police.
You think so?
You bet you. What two individuals got business that time of morning in an apple orchard?
Well, I guess you know what? I'm thinking with a I don't even think I can say this. I'm thinking with a different mindset. Uh I'm thinking they was having some adult playtime, type of deal. So
Nah,
it's
ain't nobody having a playtime on my watch. I'm calling the police.
so it's So it's like I would have let it slide. I'd been like, oh, they trying to spice it up, and I would have kept going.
No, I would have called the police.
But that's just me. Like, but I mean, we do need to pay attention to things. And who's like, apparently, I don't feel like he was appearing to be threatening. Because if he was, then maybe the lady would have tried to intervene and call the police. But you know, I just don't. I don't think I would have. I don't think I would have honestly in that situation because like I said, that's the first thing that came to my mind when I saw the reenactment on Forensic Files. I was like, oh, it just looked like a normal encounter. How was she to know that this lady was about to be essayed and killed? So when she was found, Rhonda's clothes were also taken off of her, just like the Maris's were, and her car was missing. So the police called the Nissan company and they have this feature to where if you miss a payment, they can disable your car. Yeah, don't do that because teenage me going into my early 20s, that happened to me when I wasn't the best financially stable and they disabled my car while I was on the way to make a car payment.
Oh no, they got you bad.
They had me messed up. Like, if you're going to be anything in life, be for real. But anyway, so just so happened, Rhonda was in the same boat I was. Around the time she was murdered, she had missed a payment. So the police called the company and had them turn that feature off. That way, whoever had stolen the car wouldn't be able to, start the car whenever. But I think it only happens when you turn it off. Like it can't cut off mid drive while you in the middle of traffic on 85 or something like that, because that's
Yeah, that's dangerous.
safety
Yeah.
reasons.
Hmm.
But yeah, and the store employees where she worked, they looked at the video and said that the man who had kidnapped her or gotten, I'm not going to, we can't even say kidnapping at this point. The man who had gotten in the car with her appeared to be a man named Chester Donovan, which is a guy who Rhonda had been dating. And let me just tell y'all, like that photo they put up of Chester was fine.
He was.
Chester was fine,
He was.
honey.
His skin was given,
Uh,
jawline chiseled.
I said Rhonda better do that.
Okay.
She knew
Like,
to.
right, she knew the secret.
Oh
Okay.
my God.
Yeah, I was like, wow.
And I don't even like light skin. Like I love my men black as the pavement. You know that. But Chester was giving, okay?
Very handsome.
Very.
So, so with Chester, of course, they said they had been seeing each other, and some of her friends who saw the video said it looks just like him. Now, Chester was a teacher's aide at the school where her kids went to school. He did have a previous history of domestic violence, so immediately investigators felt like, okay, we might have something here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So once, they brought him in for questioning, of course he denied it. He said, I had nothing to do with this. And he also volunteered for a polygraph test. He failed it too. So
Mm-hmm.
like Toya mentioned earlier, polygraph tests, even nowadays, I think they're not even a reliable source in
They're not.
cases because I mean, you can honestly like trick your mind. I honestly think isn't it goes based off kind of anxiety when answering the
Yeah,
question?
like your
Yeah,
biological responses. And it's like,
yeah,
okay, well, that's not always accurate because um I learned that the same emotions that elicit the same way you elicit, I think, fear and anxiety, those are the same reactions that elicit excitement. So if these biological responses are the same, how can you say I'm one or the other?
right, right. So, he failed the polygraph test, and then, investigators went back to the witness who actually saw Rhonda approaching the orchard with the suspect, because right now we don't have a name.
Yeah.
Um, so investigators pulled her in. She, um, you know, they gave her like six pictures, and they were like, okay, pick out the suspect out of these pictures. And she did, and she actually selected Chester.
She picked my boy Chester.
She picked Chester. So,
She
investigators were like, all right, so of course they're gonna get some DNA from him to see if his DNA matches the sample they took from Rhonda's case and Damaris's case. Okay, both of them. And it was not a match. Also, Chester had a very solid alibi
Mhm.
for the morning when all of the when Rhonda's murder took place, right? So
Right.
now if y'all go back, y'all, right? So why would they even be testing the DNA for Damaris's case in Rhonda's case?
Well, I think what happened, and before I say this, let me say,
Allegedly.
for educational purposes only. I love that lady on TikTok, y'all. But so let me just say that they could have done this from the beginning. They went through all of this, making him take a polygraph, all this other stuff, when all you had to do was when her coworkers said that they had us, that was Chester on the footage, all they had to do was get his DNA right then and rule him out. But you went through all this rigmarole. I don't even know if that's a real word, to just to find out that it wasn't him. But see, I think the way it happened, they did not test Damaris's DNA. It was already in the system.
Gotcha.
So it was already in the system from when, her assault and murder happened. So what happens is they run it through CODIS. And when they ran it through CODIS, they found, okay, so the DNA does not match Chester Donovan, but it is an exact match to the DNA found at the crime scene of Damaris Wynn.
Right. Right.
Yeah, so the system automatically put two and two together and they're like, oh crap. You know what I mean? Like these cases are connected.
Right. So, like I mentioned, so Chester had an alibi. He was at work. Okay, you can't deny a timestamp when he on the clock. All right. And then there was 5 people working with him that said, okay, yes, he was at work. So that ruled him totally out, right?
Right.
So the investigators were still trying to work at these cases, so they decided to go back to the video. Now, the video is, oh, y'all, like it was such poor quality. Like it was dark, it was fuzzy, and everything. So
Yeah, I
around
said
that,
they must have took that on the Android.
they must
Them,
them Android users gonna come for you.
they'll be all right. I love y'all though.
It's all love.
I love
Okay. So So they went back to the video. And there were 2 videos, one that was on the left of her car and one was on the right of her car. So around that time, the Secret Service were in like kind of experimenting with new video surveillance equipment that would
Mhm.
enhance videos. So they sought out the help of the Secret Service. So this case was actually one of the first cases in which they got to use this technology for video enhancement. So
Mhm.
they went in and they saw, okay, it's a little fuzzy, it's dark. Let's see if we can go in here and clear it up some. So they did, and it still wasn't perfect. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like it wasn't perfect, but it improved it a little. So, but investigators did see a little more than what they saw initially, right? So initially, they just saw a man approach Rhonda. It looked like they spoke for a few seconds. She got in the car in the driver's side. He walked around the front of the car and got in on the passenger side, through the passenger side. But when the video was enhanced, they saw where actually he took the keys from Rhonda. She got in the
Mhm.
car. He took the keys from her, got in the car, and then actually they saw their hands kind of moving like they were kind of arguing and fighting, and he actually stuck the keys in the ignition for her
And started a car himself.
and started the car himself. Yes.
So that kind of led them to believe, okay, this was not someone that she knew, perhaps. It wasn't just a friendly encounter. This was a kidnapping.
Yes. So immediately they were like, all right, we didn't see that before. Now we got something. Of course this woman didn't know this man. So like Toya mentioned, her car, with her being deceased at this point, she wasn't making car payments. So they went to the Nissan dealership and they were letting them know when you don't pay your bill, they'll turn your car off. So they actually found her car abandoned, right? Because it was turned off.
Hmm.
And y'all, whoever took her car had set it on fire
And stole that woman
and
radio.
stole that woman's radio.
Like, what?
So y'all, for the people who like to go to the pawn shop, y'all be careful, right?
It's giving
Because
crackhead vibes. Cause why is you stealing my radio? And then
right,
don't set the car on fire.
and
Sir, what?
right, dusty behavior for sure.
Yeah.
So, so what happened was police kind of put out a word to their informants. That's why I said, y'all be careful going to the pawn shop now, all right? So they put out a word to their informants and they were like, look, be on the lookout for someone trying to pawn possibly a radio out of a Nissan car, a
Hmm.
Nissan Sentra, I believe it was. So sure enough, they got a break. They said someone was trying to exchange some cocaine for the radio.
Honey, not the cocaine.
Yes,
That booger
yes.
sugar.
That booger
Like
sugar.
I
God.
said, did I say it was giving crackhead vibes? I'm like Judge Mathis. Yeah, you a crackhead. I know a crackhead when I see one. Girl,
Right.
mm-mm.
So they were able to. Now, here's where I was getting confused. So it seems like from this interaction, they knew this whole exchange with the cocaine and the radio, right? They knew he went by a nickname. I think they were saying his nickname, but they were able to find his real name, right?
But listen, why does the nickname go with the drug? Because his nickname
No,
is Snow. So imagine how much cocaine you got to do for somebody to start calling you Snow.
call you Snow. Exactly. Exactly. So, oh my God. So, so boom, now we have a name, right? So they were able to determine that Frederick actually lived walking distance from Rhonda's job. Now, y'all, I remember this store. It was actually called the Cigarettes for Less store.
Yeah, that store is closed. It's been closed down for years.
Yes.
It's actually not too far from my job. And I don't know, they call it the Reedville community, but to me, that's considered, oh
Drayton
God,
area. Like,
Drayton. Yeah,
yes,
that's Drayton.
yes. I consider River Road like on the Westgate side of
On
town.
the Westgate side, on actual Reedville Road of over here by, the mall and where you get off on 26. But you know what I wonder, and I didn't look it up, didn't see. I wonder if the store closed after this incident with Rhonda.
I honestly think so. Because honestly, I think allegedly, I can't stand on none of this. So
Educational
y'all,
purposes
educational
only.
purposes only. Thank you. So, cause listen, okay. Anyway, um, so I honestly think it went through several name changes after that, and it's just like I think people just knew what happened there, and it was just like nah, and it just
Well,
eventually just shut down.
and that could have been the case, but like I pass by that area frequently and it still says cigarettes for less
Oh,
on the
for real?
neon sign. Like the sign isn't lit up anything, but you know how it's just there and the grass is grown up around it and stuff like that. So it
Yeah.
still says cigarettes for less, but that doesn't mean they didn't go through name changes because I know a lot of convenience stores that go through name changes, but will still keep the sign up for whatever reason.
Right, right. So, so with Frederick, they determined he lived in walking distance from her job, and of course, he also, y'all, like I told y'all earlier, he had the background to commit. He had he definitely had a background to say, okay, we need to look at this guy because he definitely could possibly commit a crime like this towards her, right?
Definitely.
So, I just really got my life with this case because y'all, the police was so sneaky with this man because
Like, first of all, if you ever arrested, before they ask you anything, ask for a lawyer.
right, don't say nothing,
Don't say nothing. Like if they ask me my name, lawyer.
right?
What's your birthday, lawyer?
Lawyer,
If y'all don't do nothing else, and I'm not encouraging anybody to commit, crimes or anything like that. But if you're gonna do it, be smart about it. And when you get called in as a suspect, don't open your mouth. Get you
exactly.
a lawyer up immediately. As soon as you say the word lawyer, they have to stop questioning you. Don't quote me on that because I learned that from Law and Order SVU, okay?
Right. But
Much
look,
of what I learned about crime is from
it's
Law and Order SVU
in forensic files.
and
But
forensic
y'all,
files and snapped,
and
okay?
Medea helped me
Yeah,
out a few times.
right.
But y'all don't ever, y'all do not ever, if they start and the pressure get heavy, say lawyer. Like, and it stops.
That's it.
I'm not encouraging y'all to do that now. Like,
But
but
I'm just saying, if you're gonna do it, be smart about it.
be
Don't
smart
be
about
a
it.
dumb criminal, okay?
Don't be Frederick.
Mm.
Okay. So they fooled him. Let me tell you how they got him, right? So they fooled Frederick by telling him they showed his mother. They pulled the mama card, y'all. They pulled the
You
mama
know
card.
how folks is about their mama, like my mama what?
Right. They told him we showed your mom the footage of the video. And he was like, "What'd she say?" And they was like, "Come on, man. You know what she said." And he just folded.
That's all they had to say.
And
They
that's
was
all they
like,
had to say.
your mama said it was you. He ain't talked to his mama. He has not confirmed this with his mama. He just believed them off the strength of. But you know what? Sometimes there is a study that says that people tend to believe those that are in uniform without them, without any proof, any justification, or anything to back it up. Just because they're in uniform form, they usually go off, you know, the strength of, oh, this seems to be an authoritative figure. So in his mind, he ain't had no reason not to believe him. But I don't care what the police tell me. Me and my mama so tight. Mom. I know. First of all, I know my mama ain't gonna say nothing to
Right.
no police. Okay,
Right.
she's not gonna condone my actions, but she's not gonna talk to the police. She gonna lawyer up like I would. But secondly, you get a phone call. Why you didn't just call your mama?
Right, right. Because I know
Like
from like my mom, she tells people I know what my child said and what she didn't say.
my mama say the same thing.
Yeah.
And if I ever have to step out of character to anyone, the first thing she's going to say, well, what did you do to her?
Yeah,
Like,
because
what
that
did you
ain't,
say to her? Because that's
yeah,
not me. That is not
exactly.
me. So if I ever do something that's way out of my character, she know for a fact that you had to do something to provoke me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, y'all, so they got Frederick, right? Swapped him for DNA, came back a match for both women,
Y'all.
Rhonda and Damaris. Now, y'all, I'm about to play devil's advocate a little bit, right?
Yeah, because I was gonna play it too. Go ahead.
All
Go
right,
ahead.
so no disrespect to anybody, right? I'm not saying this man should not be behind bars, right? He
Right.
definitely deserves it.
Right.
But okay, I tell you what, let's just finish out the cases and then I'll get to my opinions later, right?
Okay.
So So with the authorities, they feel like, okay, we got our guy. So they were able to kind of like develop a story. Thought perhaps maybe Frederick was sleeping on a park bench in Duncan Park that morning when
Mhm.
Damaris passed him and he unfortunately SA'd her, strangled her, tried with her headphones at first and then eventually like finished I hate
With
to
his
say that word.
hands. Yeah.
Just completed the job unfortunately with his hands. So, um of course, he's arrested. 1 year later, they went to trial. He was on trial for murder, kidnapping. I wrote down all of the um so it was first degree criminal sexual conduct, kidnapping and grand larceny,
Mhm.
and of course murder, and of course he was found guilty. They gave him the death penalty for that,
Yeah, he was
right?
found guilty on all counts as he should be.
Right. But see, they also kind of tied in the rape he when he raped the elderly lady, they tied that in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cause when that happened, y'all, just quick sidebar. He raped, as Sha mentioned in the beginning, he raped an 83-year-old woman in Greenville County, which if you're from Spartanburg, you know Greenville is about 20 to 30 miles, depending on traffic on 85 South, and it's always traffic on 85. But anyway, so on November 21st, 1991, now that date is important because, as I said previously, the quota system did not become a requirement in South Carolina until 2002. So his DNA was not on record and not on file. So this lady's case had gone cold for, let's see, 91 to
Mhm.
what, 2003. That's
Mhm.
what, 10, 11, 12 years.
Mhm.
12 years passed and they didn't know who had raped this 83-year-old woman. But when they entered Freddie's information, his DNA into the CODA system, it came back as a hit on that case as well. And the woman has since been deceased because in 91 she was 83 already, old age. But her daughter saw to it that he was convicted in her rape as well. But that just goes to show, like, technology can be a good or a bad thing. In this case, it was a very good thing in helping close out a rape case in Greenville County that had been cold for 12 years.
Yes. And shout out to her daughter because I think the lady had even passed when
Yeah,
this cases were going on. Shout out to her daughter who said she was not gonna rest until her mother's rapist was found.
as
So
she
shout out to
should.
her.
As
Yes.
she should. Because if it was my mama, oh baby,
Oh yes.
I
I
wouldn't have
cut up.
even waited for him to get arrested. I would have been at his door.
Yes. I would have cut up.
I would have handled
Absolutely.
things my own. I know, and I'm not, vigilante justice. I don't promote that. But in certain cases, yeah.
An 83-year-old woman, sir?
83-year-old woman, like, she was defenseless. Like,
Yes.
you're disgusting. Like, how horrible of a human being do you have to, like, y'all, you'll see I have a passion for the elderly, okay?
Yes. Yes.
As in children too. How horrible of a person, because he went from raping a, excuse me, essaying a 6-year-old to essaying an 83-year-old. Like, how pathetic of a human being do you have to be to target those vulnerable populations when you know they can't defend themselves? That's what angers me the most. And that's why they become, I'm not calling them weak, but that's why they end up becoming weak targets or easy targets, is because they're unable to defend themselves.
Exactly.
And which, you know, and I know a lot of people hate DSS, but that's where they come in the picture because, yeah, there is a need to protect these populations of people because if there was no actual exploitation, neglect, and abuse going on, there would be no need for DSS. I need y'all to understand that. Sometimes things do come about where, yeah, maybe that child shouldn't have been removed from the home, whatever the case may be. But DSS doesn't even remove kids from the home. That's law enforcement. So if law enforcement saw need to remove a child or an elderly person from a home, something had to have been going on.
Like y'all have to understand, like elderly people, sometimes they don't even have kids that live nearby. You know what I mean? So
Right.
they're vulnerable, right? And children are too.
Very.
So like you think these suspects don't strategically seek out that age population, like kids and elderly people?
They definitely do. That, I mean, they prey on them.
They
Like
do.
and it doesn't even have to be physical. Like they prey on them on the phone. Like my
Exactly.
grandmother gets calls where they're like, "Oh, you need to do this and send us this amount of money, or we're gonna throw you in jail." And then she'll call either myself or my mom or my cousin, because the three of us kind of handle the affairs for her and my grandfather now that they're up in age. But they'll even call and try to prey on them on the phone, and a lot of times they fall for it,
Of
and they'll
course.
end up giving people their whole life savings for out of fear, because either they don't have a relationship with their children, there's no one around to check on them, or whatever the case may be. Like, y'all, I work with these populations. It is very sad. It is
Yes.
very sad. Like, don't throw your people away when they get up in age and, you know, things start happening. Yeah, sometimes I can understand how it can be a burden and you have your own life to live, but see to it to look after them or have somebody keep eyes on them. I don't care if it's a trusty neighbor, like,
Exactly.
just somebody. Cause and that's not to blame this daughter. I don't know the situation with this daughter.
Yes.
I commend this daughter for seeing this through and not letting it go even after her mom passed away, because some people would have just let sleeping
Just
dogs
let it
lie.
go. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I commend this daughter, but I'm just saying in general, when your parents, your grandparents, whoever gets up in age, y'all don't forget about them. They, don't just leave them hanging, because you never know what outside influences are at play and maybe taking advantage of. Because I've seen so much stuff happen to these people, and it's so sad.
So, of course, he goes to court. He's found guilty and he was sentenced to death. Now, here's where I'm getting ready to play devil's advocate a little bit, y'all. And these are
Mhm.
my opinions, right? This is not facts. These are my opinions and what I feel like the
And
issue is.
real quick before you do, I
Mhm.
just want to say that Forensic Files did want to make note that Evans did not testify in his own defense, and they equate that to, like, basically you putting a nail in your coffin if you don't testify in your own defense.
Yes.
But go ahead, sis.
So, I do not feel like I don't care what they said DNA said. I know Dana don't lie, right?
She
I
don't.
she don't. But I do not care. I don't care what nobody say. I do not believe that man killed Damaris.
You don't.
No,
I really believe he did kill her.
I don't,
But
sis.
I okay, so I feel like he killed Damaris as a crime of opportunity, because he seems to me to be an opportunist. However, I feel as though with Rhonda that, yes, he killed her as well, but I think they may have been romantically involved, because now Rhonda, she, just judging off Chester Donovan, how he looked and how Frederick Evans looked, they're somewhat similar, and I just feel like maybe he did have some type of consensual thing going with her, and something went wrong somewhere. Now, he this is all allegedly for educational purposes only, but that's just how I feel, because when I saw Chester's mugshot, and I saw Frederick's, I was like, like, she seems to have a type. But Frederick has never said this. This is just what Toya thinks.
Well, he did say that he like because when he first started telling investigators his side of the story, he said, they knew each other, it was consensual, they had
Yeah,
somewhat of a relationship, right? And I
right.
mean, I mean, but no one was there to like like validate that and to say yes, this is true.
Because the
Um,
only one that could was dead.
was
She was
Rhonda.
deceased.
She was deceased. So I'm I don't believe he killed Damaris though, sis. No, I don't.
Why don't you believe that he didn't kill her?
Because honestly, I think investigators were tired of like trying to figure out like who did it and all this stuff. And I'm tired. The Walkman part, I was so wrapped up in that because that's just sketchy. And then him cremating the body and against the family's wishes and stuff. Like I was just like, that just stuck with me. And
Oh, so you think it's the husband
allegedly,
for educational
for
purposes
educational
only.
purposes only. Right.
So, okay, this is what I think about that. So, I don't think it was the husband. I think because when I think back to, myself in 2002, 2003, I did have more than one Walkman, more than one CD player, whatever the case may be. So, I mean, I think that was valid, and I feel like they actually found the Walkman or something along those lines with Freddie, or he had something that linked to that Walkman. I can't remember, but I read it or saw it on Forensic Files, but there was something that linked him to that Walkman as well. So I feel like she definitely did have more than one. Now, I will say, to play devil's advocate, what I don't like in a lot of the cases that I see, because we, like y'all, when I say we've been true crime, diehard
We
fans.
about this life.
We about that, like we be sending each other videos and stuff, like we had solved the kidnapping case last year before the police did, with the lady, the prison guard.
Speaking
Who
of, when they gonna run my
Casey.
check though?
Casey White, yeah, they need to pay us because we had said that they was romantically involved before the police knew.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So we do this, okay? So what I'm gonna say is, I hate that in all of these cases, it seems to me that the police, it's like certain facts don't add up, so they'll zone in on one suspect and then try to get the evidence to match that suspect instead of still remaining open and continuing to consider all angles of the case.
Yeah.
Like, if you have a suspect, then I think you should say, okay, and you go interview this suspect, see what you can find. We get a search warrant for the house, swab DNA, da 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 da, and the rest of the team is going to continue to exhaust all efforts to find this woman's killer, because I feel like you waste too much time. Well, you zone in on a suspect and then it turns out that it's not even him.
Right,
And
right.
who's to say they're not doing that? I don't know. But in all of these cases that we follow and listen to, I never hear them say, you know, we're still keeping our eyes open for such and such. It's like, no,
Mhm.
we suspect the husband. We're gonna make this evidence fit the husband. We suspect Chester Donovan. So we're gonna make this stuff fit Chester Donovan until you run the DNA and it doesn't.
Right, right. But
You
I
know what I
feel
mean?
like, of course, being that the husband was like the last person she saw that day, of course they're gonna go after him, like to
Right.
check and see, just make
They
sure everything
always
checks out with
do.
him. They always do. But I feel like really in this case, like he I if he did it, like, Lord forgive me, like if he did it, Lord forgive me, But I just feel like there were two cases 5 months apart, not the same, but similar. Really two women from two different worlds.
Mhm.
Um, and I felt like they just like, all right, well, we just gonna pin him. I'm gonna be honest, I don't believe the DNA evidence. I believe that the evidence came back matching Rhonda's murder, but I honestly don't believe it matched in Damaris's murder. And I honestly feel like that was just a narrative that was pushed. That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
I think he killed both of them because I can see him doing that.
I mean,
I
I
can
think
see
he
this man. I
can.
can see this man. He is capable. He is
Yeah.
more than capable, because my thing is, specifically in Rhonda's case, he switched up. First, you didn't have no involvement, but when the detectives tell you, "Oh, we talked to your mama, she identified you on the surveillance," well, your story changes. And I don't think he ever said too much on the merits, other than like they showed him walking in the Spartanburg County Courthouse, and it was so crazy because I'm like, "Oh my
Mhm.
God, I've walked by that door. I walked up
Mhm.
those stairs while I'm watching it, just whatever."
Mhm.
But it's like he was saying everything isn't as it seems, ma'am. Or,
I remember that.
it's two sides to a story, ma'am. Like, and that's another thing I want to throw in his defense. So when this happened, he was sentenced to death, but in 2014, that conviction was overturned because he filed an appeal on the sentencing part of his case. So that's what even makes me to believe even more that he did this, because why would you only file an appeal just on the sentencing portion if you're not guilty on both of these charges? He just didn't want to be put to death, and his reasoning was due to ineffective counsel.
Yes.
Now, his defense had asked that he not be put to death because he had an intellectual disability. And I kind of believe it, because if you look at him and you see him talking and stuff like that, like it's like, but at the same time, so they overturned the death penalty, and I think they gave him 3 consecutive life sentences. But like, I mean, that just makes me believe even more that he killed Damaris as well. Because why would you? He was charged for murder on both of these cases. Why would you only dispute the sentencing and not the whole case itself or the charges? You see what I mean?
Yeah, I see what you mean, but like I see what you mean in that aspect. But
Dana don't lie, sis.
it don't lie, but
Dana
I'm
don't
gonna tell you,
lie.
Dana don't lie, but it's a known fact that investigators do too.
Well, yeah, they do. They do. But I don't even see the way it was presented on Forensic Files was like Damaris was not even on their radar. Like after 5 months and they haven't found anything, she wasn't even on their radar anymore. And they didn't have anything other than that DNA evidence. They didn't have a lot to go off of. And if, like I said, if you were not in that CODA system, um, when they started in 2002, if you convicted crimes before 2002, it wouldn't be in there. So they were shooting in the dark. They were putting in DNA to see if they could get a match to Chester. And then it popped up, oh, this matches the DNA found at Damaris's crime scene. It's like, oh, like they weren't even thinking that. And then it's like, wow, these cases are connected. And then when they tested good old Freddie, he matched both of them. Like in the DNA, the only way I could see this happening is if he was also romantically involved with Damaris. They had consensual relations in the park. The husband saw it or found out about it, and then he went crazy. But the
Nah,
DNA
yeah.
collected definitely matched Freddie. And I think the DNA collected was from the sexual assault. So if it was like, and not to be TMI, but if it was semen, then
I
something
feel
was
you.
going on. Like he had some connection to her.
I feel you, but I'm just saying, it's just I don't know. I get what you're saying. I don't know about that one. I don't
And
know.
I think it's because they raised so much reasonable doubt with
Yeah.
the husband.
Yeah,
But
and his actions, yeah.
it just seems to be, it's suspicious, yeah, but I don't think it's enough to say he did this, because like I said, you have to consider the population you're dealing with. While we as the black community are not very familiar with cremation and stuff like that, the white community does that often. So I think that's another thing you have to consider as well, because we're thinking, oh, you gonna burn a body, you trying to get rid of evidence. Well, what evidence is there to get rid of? They had already swabbed her and took all they could.
But in previous cases, that's normally a red flag though. Like
Yeah.
if a person like if someone rushes to get the body like cremated, like what are you trying to hide? Like, you know, that's a lot. Like, I know a lot of cases like that. There's just like, all right, well, we have, But I get what you're saying at that point. They got all the evidence they needed or whatever, but it was just like suspicious. Like I feel like his
It
actions
is.
were
It
suspicious.
is suspicious, but I just feel like we don't know what Damaris's wishes were. She could have told her husband she wanted to be cremated because my family was put in a similar situation, where my great uncle told my grandmother, if he were to pass away, he wanted to be cremated, and everyone else was against that and they didn't believe my grandma. But luckily, there were witnesses around who heard the conversation and confirmed that that was his request. So who's to say Damaris didn't tell him because that she wanted to be cremated? And even still, even if that those were her wishes, like the family feels how they feel, just like in our situation, the family felt how they felt, but my grandma promised him that that's what she would do. So it's very suspicious. I give you that, but I don't think it warrants enough to say like Freddie. I feel like Freddie did it. Because Freddie has been a menace to society since
He has.
18.
He
I
has.
mean, he has been SAing women, children, the elderly, so she wouldn't be any different.
Right. I see what you're saying.
He
But I'm
just he's a menace. And then it's crazy how when they put that's what I'm saying, like they put his DNA in the system and it even they wasn't even looking at the 83-year-old's rape anymore. At this point, this was 12 years later. They enter his information in CODIS and they get a hit on that. Like they not even looking at these cases. They're just focusing on Wanda Ward, and then
yeah.
it's coming back connected to these other cases. Like
Right.
the
Right.
man needed to be off the streets, but I
Of
just
course.
don't
Now
agree
I'm not.
with.
Yeah. Now I'm not saying he doesn't need to be where he's at. He definitely needs to be locked away and never, never let out for it at
Right.
all.
Now,
Keep
I
him
don't
in
know
there.
how I feel about the death penalty.
Yeah, I feel you because I think life is enough.
I think
Like,
life is enough. Three
yeah.
consecutive life sentences, you're gonna die in there anyway. That's kind of a death sentence. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I don't know how I feel about the death penalty. So that, but a judge did overturn that in 2014. So he is still in custody, serving those life sentences. But I just, like I said, I just don't like how law enforcement zones in on one suspect and tries to make the evidence fit that one suspect because they really, if it weren't for DNA, they probably would have arrested Chester Donovan and charged him with this crime and he was innocent.
Now, I'm gonna say one other thing I want to touch on before we wrap it up, right? I'm gonna
Hmm.
tell you, I had a big problem when I was watching Forensic Files in this case. I had a big problem with one of those women they were interviewing and saying, and I have heard people say this in the past, like, if someone is being abducted, you don't want to get to the second location because if you don't make it to the
Yeah.
second location, 9 times out of 10, like that's gonna be the place where they end your life, right? But that's
Yeah.
not fair, right? Because
Yeah.
when you're scared half to death, right?
Yeah.
And you don't know, like, you're just trying to stay alive at that point. I get what you're
That's
saying.
it.
But at that point, you're just trying to do what this person says so you can stay alive. Not even thinking like, I mean, you're not thinking about fighting them. I mean, you might. I mean, everybody's different. Who knows? Lord, I pray no one, but you never really know at that point, like, all right, I'm not gonna make if I make it like if this person takes me to the second location, then I'm not gonna make it. And I was just like when she said, I was like, that ain't right. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I'm not feeling it.
And I feel like a lot of times that, law enforcement agencies, reporters, because I think she was a reporter,
Mhm.
they get so caught up in statistics that when they say things like that, it comes off as very insensitive to where it's like, oh, you're blaming the victim. Like it's, you know what I mean? Like, but it's not her fault at all. Now, me, I'm like, I would have started driving at some point. I would have tucked the roll out the car.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's me. But it's not her fault that she was showing up to work to do her shift and this man just took her, and did what he did to her. So no, I didn't like I thought that comment was very awkward and very weird for her to say in Forensic Files. But it was just like, that seems kind of insensitive. But I definitely agree with you on that. That kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
Definitely. So y'all let us know your thoughts in our comments. Thank you so much for the support and everyone who shared and watched our video last week. Toya, is there anything else any other
No,
comments, anything you want to touch on?
I don't think so. We'll be back same time next week. Just if there's any suggestions or any cases you would like us to cover. Now we're doing true crime cases in South Carolina, but we don't have to limit ourselves to that. If there's something you want us to touch on, just send us, and you can drop a comment on YouTube, or you can, well, I guess that's all you can do is drop a comment on YouTube. So like, share, subscribe. Our YouTube channel is Sisters in Crime with Shy and Toy, of course. And we'll see you guys next week.
Y'all have a blessed weekend. Take care.
Bye.